Welcome to the Pitcher Nail Down. I'm Jason Gilbo at JGilbo11. With me is Russell Clay at Russell J. Clay. Taking a look at tonight's 11-game slate. And overall, I mean, some strong pitching options up top. As far as cheap SP2s, it gets a little wild.
Yeah, you could say that. As far as SP2s, it gets about as gross as the grocery store sushi I just ate. I'd say that's about as gross as the SP2s are going to be. But yeah, let's get into it. There are some good options at the top here. So it is going to be a fun one.
Yeah, definitely. First game here, you got the Braves and Nationals. Ronaldo Lopez versus Rob Whalen. Two very mediocre right-handers at this point. I'm not really looking to exploit either of the matchups, even though Lopez is obviously cheap, young guy against the Braves. I'm just sort of kind of fading this game as far as pitchers go.
Yeah, I don't see the appeal for either side here. Usually you at least take a hard look at targeting the Braves, but ever since Matt Kemp showed up, it's kind of like solidified them a tiny bit. They're still a really bad offense, but they're not like, oh, okay, a really bad arms on the hill. I'm still going to use them against the Braves. So I think we're just avoiding this game in terms of pitching.
Yeah, definitely. Moving on to the next one here. You got the Rockies and the Phillies. Rockies small favorites there, minus 115. Tyler Anderson, Jared Eichhoff. I think both are somewhat intriguing options in a GPP standpoint. Anderson's a little more cash game worthy, I think, just because he's been a little bit more consistent. But I definitely don't mind these guys. I mean, obviously the Rockies offense on the road, not as solid as at home. Eichhoff, I mean, he's a guy who has pitched much better at home this year, 2.92 ERA compared to over a 4.5 ERA on the road. I'm okay with these guys, just given their prices.
Yeah, I am too. Especially, I mean, on DK, 6,900 for Eichhoff really kind of puts him into, that I wouldn't even call it a deep tournament range, but that tournament range where maybe he's not your first tier SP2, but you're definitely looking at him. Maybe he can fit in another big bat for you. Obviously, the reverse splits type of situation, but you still have to worry about Blackmon and Cargo there.
Yeah, certainly. And on the other side, I mean, Philly's great matchup for Anderson. I mean, 23% strikeout rate against lefties, 281 WOBA, which ranks dead last in the league. I'm certainly okay with deploying him. I mean, Anderson's a guy who I actually like quite a bit. I mean, he's actually been a guy who we've targeted a few times, even in cores. So moving away from cores, I'm okay with deploying him. I do wish his DraftKings price tag was cheaper. That's something I'm not the biggest fan of. But given the fact that there are a lack of options down low, I'm okay with it.
I guess so. Obviously on FanDuel, it's a little bit of a different situation because he's only 6,400. But I don't know about you. I kind of feel the same way about Anderson as I did John Gray the day before, where it's like he's just a good arm. They're not in Coors. They're facing a below-average offense. Obviously, lefty is different than righty, so that's even better for Anderson. But I kind of feel like they're in the same range where I like them both,
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously the Vegas lines, I mean, low totals for both of them. Game's basically a pick 'em. So I'm definitely okay with using both those guys in tournaments.
Yep.
Padres and Mets next year. Mets are minus 210 favorites. Jacob deGrom against Jared Cozart. deGrom obviously facing a Padres offense that's, very weak. deGrom, one of the stronger cash game and GPP options on tonight's slate. The price tag is obviously high, but deservingly so in this matchup.
Yeah, I'd say so. deGrom, this is cash game. This is the profile you look for a cash game arm here. Weak Padres offense, nice Vegas numbers heading towards your way. Another righty versus this Mets offense. So yeah, fire away with him in cash. I don't really see anyone else competing with him for the SP1. Yeah, at least on DK,
Yeah, 24% strikeout rate, swinging strike rate over 10%. Coming off a pretty solid stretch. Obviously, didn't have the greatest start against the Tigers' offense, but before that, I mean, very solid against New York, Colorado, Philly, Miami. So he was having a fine stretch before then. On the other side, I mean, Cozart, obviously, guy we're expecting Mets with some run support for deGrom.
Yeah, and on FanDuel, deGrom's going to be super chalky, right?
I would imagine so. I mean, a little bit
Yeah.
cheaper than Bumgarner, in a better spot than guys like Cole Hamels. He kind of fits the bill there for a strong cash game option.
Yeah.
So, looking at the next game here, you got the Reds and Brewers. Zach Davies versus Dan Straley. This one just feels a little bit awkward for me. Both these arms, I mean, obviously two offenses that are kind of a little bit boomer bust, but have been playing well in a good ballpark there for hitters. I'm just kind of staying away at the price tags. I'm not really a fan of Straley's price or kind of using him at all.
Nah, this is kind of our mid-range, and I don't like the mid-range. These two just make me feel uncomfortable. They're two really volatile offenses that are kind of random against mediocre pitching, so I could see both going downhill pretty quickly. Is there some upside? Maybe for Straley, I could see a little upside, but overall, two guys I'm not really touching.
Yeah, I mean, you can make a case for Davies. I mean, obviously on DraftKings where he's 7,600, he's a guy who's done okay at Miller Park, has done well against the Reds, but third time against seeing them, I am a little bit concerned going through this lineup just another time.
Mm-hmm.
So, moving on here, we have Royals and Twins, Tyler Duffy versus Dylan G. This one, two very mediocre right-handers. Duffy obviously coming off a start that made me a little bit angry because it was against a Houston team I expected to do a ton of. And here against a Royals team, I mean, a quality start might be in order, but overall, he's not a high upside pitcher in this type of matchup.
Duffy basically did what I do to my dog sometimes, which is you hold the treat out in front of him, and he's like, no, I'm not going to do it. No, I'm not going to do it. And then, like, 3 minutes later, he's like, all right, let me see it. And then you rip it away because you're mean.
It's basically what it is.
That's exactly what he did to you. Now, obviously, that's not going to happen again, but, yeah, you're not touching either of these guys, I don't think.
No, I just can't see any reason for it. I mean, average hitters parked there in target field, two mediocre righties. I mean, obviously these offenses, I mean, the Royals aren't quite that great. I actually like the Minnesota offense much more than the Royals now. So I just can't make a case for Duffy here.
Yep, agreed.
Angels and Indians, Cleveland small favorites, Mike Clevenger versus Matt Schumacher. This one just is one of those ones I'm staying away from. And I feel like 4.2 runs for the Angels at this moment is high for them.
It's really high. We've kind of been not being mean to we're kind of being mean to the Angels. We have been for a while, and it just stinks for Mike Trout, but their team is just so bad. I don't understand it. Schumacher had that nice run, but most of his good starts were at home. I'm not sure we want to go into Cleveland and really throw him out there. But crazier things have happened, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I can't knock him as a tournament play because that strikeout upside really is still there. I mean, double-digit strikeouts against Cleveland in an earlier start against them this year. Obviously, he's kind of slipped up a little bit since then, since that run we were talking about. The only good thing is he isn't laying a ton of homers. Obviously there's a couple games where he did allow two. But I think upside-wise, he's still a fine GPP option just because his price is very low. But it's obviously a very high-risk situation against this Indians offense.
Yeah, it's between him and the guy we're going to break down, I think, next here in that mid-range sort of tournament guy. And I think this slate was kind of made for Adam Conley. So for the most part, when I'm making that decision in those price ranges, I'm going to probably be leaning towards somebody else.
Yeah, no, I definitely we'll jump into. We're not using Clevenger. We'll jump into the Marlins here. Adam Conley versus James Shields. Conley, a big favorite there at home, -175 against the White Sox offense that ranks 21st in WOBA. Against Southpaw's 22.5% strikeout rate. Conley is extremely volatile. I mean, he's one of those guys. He's either good or completely off.
Yes.
Which is why he's a great cheap GPP option. There is some upside here. He's been better at home, which is a nice bump to him. So I'm definitely okay with using him in tournaments.
This is an Adam Conley slate if I've ever seen one. It's just like there's a few really solid options at the top, and then just like not much else. And like he obviously has that upside for tournaments. He has a good matchup, and this is just an Adam Conley slate. I don't know how to say it other than that. They're solid favorites. His offense is moving and grooving ever since they got D. Gordon back. So, I mean, I really like the chances of him getting a win, and I really like his upside there. So, yeah, he's all or nothing, and this is an all or nothing type of tournament slate. So I like it quite a bit.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, well, obviously Shields on the other side, who's back to being his horrible self, which was due. He's been a guy who he had like a 5-6 game stretch there where his numbers were just unsustainable, and just a really low swinging strike rate. So I'm all aboard the Marlins train against Shields, and definitely not looking to use him at all.
No, absolutely not.
Diamondbacks and Red Sox here. Clay Buchholz versus Archie Bradley. Clay Buchholz returning to a starting role. That means nothing to me. He's just one of those right-handers I am no use for me, and same thing with Bradley. Hard to use him or justify anything that it's a good matchup.
We each tried him on like different days earlier in the season, and after that, it's just like I can't. I watched the game. I physically can't do that to myself again. I just can't do it.
I believe we were on pods that night because it was the Colorado game where I used Buchholz. And the first time through the order, he looked great. He was like 3 innings, maybe 4, 3-4 strikeouts. I was like, all right, Buchholz is going to do this. He's going to, and just absolutely collapses through the second time through the order.
And then 2 weeks later, I was like, you know what? That happened to Jason, but maybe I can just start him to get a leg up. And the same thing happened. It's just like there's no way to trust him. Even if he gets through the lineup once, they're coming around again, and it's all over. So, I mean, we'll see. Obviously, he has good stuff, or he did at one point, but it just doesn't seem to be there anymore, you know?
No, and obviously this Arizona offense is a little bit banged up, but dealing still with a front four of Lamb, Goldschmidt, Segura, and even Bourne, you can throw in there and make a case for him. That's a tough front four to get through. The rest of the lineup, I'm sure he could be fine with, but it's still a tough stretch where even at a reduced price tag, I'm not really looking to use him.
Agreed.
So. Tigers and Rangers next. Cole Hamels versus Matt Boyd. Rangers big favorites there, -180.
Hold on. So we're just assuming you're using Archie Bradley in cash, right?
Oh, I wasn't. He was my sneaky pick. That's why I went.
Yeah. No worries.
He's not a sneaky pick. I'm not using him. That's why I glossed over.
Yeah, no, he's just not in play.
No. Rangers Tigers. Texas -180 favorites. Cole Hamels versus Matt Boyd. Tigers offense against lefties, very middle of the road, even though they are a heavily right-handed lineup. 21% strikeout rate. Hamels is a guy I can't see myself really using if I'm paying up. I just like Bumgarner and DeGrom much more than him. At home, I mean, he's a little bit more prone to home runs. His ERA is over 4. He's had a little issue pitching in Texas. I'm kind of just going to spend up a little more.
Yeah, he's not a top 2 option for me, which kind of there's not much I see for him because if you're going down, I think you're going to want to go down to get value. So if I'm going down, I just want to go get Conley, you know, instead of just going down a tiny bit. You're basically going to be making similar lineups between Hamels and DeGrom. So I don't know. I'd rather just go all the way down instead of really looking at Hamels against I mean, you mentioned they're pretty mediocre splits, but it's still the Tigers, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not ruling him out completely. He's just one of those guys that, out of 10 lineups, maybe I pop him in 1 or 2 GPPs, and that's about it. A guy I'm not really getting crazy overboard. I rather see myself spending down for a value bet and then trying to upgrade to a DeGrom or Bumgarner.
Right.
As far as Boyd, on the other hand, I'm not looking to use him in this atmosphere. Tough matchup for him against Texas, who's just an incredibly deep lineup. I'm just looking to fade.
Yeah, I agree. I think once again this will be a night where I experiment with this Rangers lineup that I've just been so intrigued by ever since those trades.
Yeah, you've been ripping for a double-digit run game, like from
It
the
just
Rangers.
hasn't, I haven't really hit a night where it comes through, but whatever.
Oh, you'll get there.
Yeah, yeah, fine.
Mariners and A's next. Kendall Graveman versus Sashi Iwakuma. Iwakuma, I mean, back-to-back strong starts against two tougher offenses. I mean, he's been good. I mean, obviously struggled against the Cubs, but outside of that, he's been fine. And I'm definitely okay with using him here against the A's, a team he's done well against this year. Maybe
the A's are poopy against righties, so
they're bad. It's bumming me out.
Yeah. So I mean, they got Vot sitting in there, but it's like all of his soldiers are dead, and Vot's just like fighting by himself. Like, I don't know how Semien and Valencia are just like non-factors against righties. I get that it's righty and righty, but it's just weird to me how like they're so neutralized by these types of matchups. Because in general, I like this offense. But yeah, with Iwakuma obviously pitching really well, might be a little chalky at that price, but I still like him as a borderline cash play.
Yeah, I definitely do too. I mean, solid outing for me. Just from his last few starts, it's just kind of giving me a little bit more confidence to use him, and the price tag's really not that bad. So, Graveman on the other side, cheap arm that I'm not looking to deploy. While this Mariners offense has kind of stumbled a little bit in the second half, Graveman's still not really an option that I feel comfortable using.
Yeah, I agree. Not an option for me.
Orioles and Giants last game, Madison Bumgarner, Kevin Gausman, Giants minus 170 favorites. Bumgarner I like quite a bit, and I'm curious to see how many people are going to go up and use him because, he is the most expensive option. You do have DeGrom a little bit cheaper. I like this matchup for him. I mean, even though there are a lot of dangerous righties, Orioles in the second half, bottom 5 offense, and then against lefties, they're also a bottom 10 offense. So I can see Bumgarner at home there having a dominant start.
I can see Chris Davis just trembling in his bedroom right now thinking of this game. 2 or 3 strikeouts for him.
So Chris Davis is in his bed right now. He's not even getting ready for tonight's game.
No, Chris Davis is trembling. But yeah, overall, solid matchup. Obviously, Bumgarner can kind of overdo any sort of potential power for the Orioles if he pitches well. But I don't know. I kind of prefer some of the other options overall. Bumgarner's still the number one, but it's like closer than a normal Bumgarner start would be for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's understandable. I mean, obviously, given there are some talented right-handed bats up in the top of the order, I can see the definite concern. But just given the fact that the ballpark factors all add up to a solid DeGrom start, the way the Orioles have performed of late, I mean, you take away Manny Machado in his 4 or 5 homers over the last few games, this offense hasn't done much. So right. I think that's my take on this Baltimore team. I think Bumgarner is a fine start.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
As far as Gausman goes, not quite cheap enough for me to use. Am I looking to attack him? Not really, but I'm not really looking to use him either.
Like most Giants matchups with their lineup, it's just a bunch of mediocrity everywhere. So,
Man, you were ripping on them.
Yeah. Stupid Giants. Stupid Gausman. I feel like that's the superheroes of mediocrity right there. The Giants lineup and Kevin Gausman. Like, they're good, but sometimes they're like, most of the time they're mediocre.
See, and that's how I see that matchup. I think it's going to be okay for both sides, but nothing worthy of looking at it for fantasy.
Yeah.
So that's going to wrap things up with the pitcher nail down. Be sure to check out DaveFantasyCafe.com for all our great tools and content.